This is Sarah Leslie with Go All In, helping entrepreneurs live the life they want to live right now, making the money they want to make the way they want to make it, while also living a rich and full life outside of their business. True personal freedom. Let's go. Hey, you guys. Welcome to Go All In. I'm Sarah Leslie, your host, and I'm so glad to be here. And I am so glad that you are here too. So last week we talked about this phrase that I had learned in church, more of you, God, less of me. And we talked about how what that really means is having more of your true self come forth, right? God is in us. And therefore, when we're accessing the power within us, the being within us that doesn't have fear and doesn't have shame, what's left is this divine energy that wants to come up and through you. So while we're singing more of you, God, in church, or, if you haven't had that experience, that's also totally fine. But we've heard of phrasing that indicates more of something outside of ourselves. And instead, what really is meant is more of that authentic self coming through. So today we're going to dive into imposter syndrome, because this also affects and is a description that demonstrates us being out of alignment, us being out of our authenticity. And so I want to help you in the areas that I am become aware of. I want to help you allow for the authenticity to be your go-to thing, and also to take some of these terms that we've heard and some of these phrases and experiences over your lifetime that you've adopted, mostly unconsciously, and root them out for you so that you are again pointed back to what I would say is more of the truth. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, right, there's a way to look at it where you can free yourself up in any given moment. And that's what I'm going to offer to you today. So when I really understood what imposter syndrome was, and I allowed myself to stop pretending, stop trying, my entire life got better. Now, I want to ask you, when do you feel like an imposter in your own life, in your business, in your marriage, in your relationships, with your kids? Where are the areas where you're feeling like you're faking it, like you're pretending, like you're having to put on? And just notice where that is for you, and allow yourself to have so much compassion for that part of you that doesn't feel as good as you would like to about a part of your life, about a part of the way that you are showing up in your life. So important. It's probably like the most important thing. And if you're anything like me, several years back now, when I would hear people talking about self-compassion, it would just totally blow right over me. And I wouldn't even be able to absorb it. It would just like bounce right off me and go like back there somewhere. And so I repeat it a lot of times here on the podcast and when I'm coaching people and in all the spaces I go in, because I've come to the point of learning, come to the point in my own awareness where I realize this is probably the most important thing, right? And self-love and compassion, self-compassion are interchangeable for me. So briefly, let's talk about, why do we feel like imposters? Impostership and imposter syndrome shows up when we are unintentionally disconnecting from who we really are. and we disconnect, right? We disconnect from the divine source within us. We disconnect from our authenticity, from our true self. And we no longer feel like we're being us. I mean, this can happen to me in such a simple way during a day. It happened this morning as I was getting my day going and so forth. And I just started to have this like feeling inside of my body, like something is off. Like I don't feel right. And those are the words that oftentimes I use to describe this. I don't think I've really ever used the term imposter syndrome. And so you probably don't either. You're not probably thinking, oh, I feel like an imposter right now. It's probably something more like, I feel like off. I feel like I'm pretending. I don't feel like I'm in myself. I'm in my own body. Like I feel out of alignment, maybe you would say. And so again, you start to notice that something doesn't feel right. And that is the point in which we've disconnected from our truth, from our divine selves, from our true selves. And we've allowed for some kind of fear, anxiety, worry, shame to make its way in. Again, nothing has gone wrong. It's so normal. And the key here, right, is not to eliminate those experiences. The key is to be able to know what is happening to you and how to get out of it. I don't even want to say it, how to get out of it. It's how to move through it to come out on the other side. For however long you're in it, but that's the heart of living a more fulfilled, more productive, more authentic life. It's not to get rid of the feelings. It's to actually know when they're there and what purpose they're serving, and then to go through the process to come out the other side. And again, when you come out the other side, you're a new version of you. You're stronger, you're healthier, you're more equipped, etc. Is this making sense so far? All right, you guys. So a couple of the ways that I see people embodying imposter syndrome and when this tends to happen, right? When we're pretending that we know more than we do, right? Like we have things figured out in ways that we don't really have them figured out. Maybe we exaggerate our knowledge, we exaggerate our capabilities, we maybe exaggerate our competencies because we want to fit in, because we don't like the feeling of not knowing. And so instead of owning that we don't know, or this is new material, or we're in uncharted territory, we overstate, we inflate, right? And again, you're going to have some kind of feeling of, I don't quite feel like myself. And when you're in the overstating, you tend to, but this is not always the case, you tend to have you're performing. And so you're like on, right? And because you're on, you may not even be aware that you're doing this. You may not even be aware that you're performing. For so many years, I wasn't aware that I was performing. I wasn't aware that I wasn't being authentic. That would be so weird to me. I would be like, of course I'm authentic. But I also did a lot of performing and a lot of wearing a mask and pretending to feel better than I actually did, to know more than I actually did, to feel more capable, more confident than I actually felt. And so again, it may take some self-awareness, it may take some self-reflection to actually notice that you're doing this. The other, like the flip side of this, right, is when we downplay what we know or what we're capable of, and we don't acknowledge our strengths, our contributions, almost like we're hiding them out of some sort of fear, probably fear of judgment, right? And so again, both of these are, one, being an imposter, and you may not be aware of them as you're doing them. And so you may also feel like you're performing when you're understating or undervaluing yourself. And so sometimes this could happen, for example, when there's someone who maybe isn't as well liked or isn't perceived to be as well liked inside of a community or inside of a group or inside of a business. And that person feels insecure about who they are, what they know, what they're capable of. And so they simply play in the background and they don't offer their opinion. They don't volunteer for a project or a request. They don't assert themselves in staff meetings because they don't want to receive whatever uncomfortable feeling they're going to get by the attention being focused on them. And so oftentimes this is fear of judgment of others. I grew up moving around quite a bit, and every time I was, we would move to a new place, I was also then being new at a school, right? And so I felt like I needed to, quote unquote, fake it to fit in, right? Whatever it is that the kids were into or whatever it is that they were doing or whatever crowd I could make my way into, I would just naturally go into this space of fitting in and doing or being whatever was needed to be accepted and brought into the group. Now, again, I didn't know that I was doing this. And honestly, by the time I got into high school, I felt like I was a professional chameleon because I had this skill set now from moving around quite a bit where I could literally move in and out of all these different groups in high school and fit into almost all of them. And certainly all of the ones that I wanted to fit into, I could do because I had learned the skill set of how to fit in. And so, oftentimes we think about our coping skills, the things that we do to fit in and the things that we do to navigate through life where we're not being our authentic self. The technical term is totally escaping me right now, and I'm not even going to pretend like I can remember it. I do know it, and it's totally escaping me right now. So whatever that term is, those things that we do to fit in, to overcompensate, to deal with things where we're not being authentic, right? We're using these unhealthy coping skills. And so they serve a purpose is what I want you to hear, right? And so instead of judging them as bad things, like, again, I had no idea that this chameleon skill set that I was improving upon was actually not so good for me, right? Would actually reveal itself in my now 40s. Well, when it started to reveal itself, really, I was in my 30s and causing me serious problems. I didn't know, or I would have done differently. So if you're anything like me and you're tending to want to, I should know this by now, I should be farther along. Why am I still trying to figure this out? Just know you don't know what you don't know, and it's okay. Because I shitted on myself for so long that I should know, when the truth is I had learned other skill sets that had actually helped me get to where I was, even though they weren't authentic skill sets. They weren't the best skill sets for me to feel the most comfortable with myself. And that's okay. Again, insert lots and lots of self-compassion. Okay? So we pretend primarily, right? Because we want to adapt. We want to fit in. We want to survive. There are really these different types of survival skill sets that we end up learning to get through life to the best of our ability. And so again, right, I didn't know during childhood that a lot of these survival skill sets that I was learning were actually things that I was then going to have to unlearn to learn something new when I was an adult. And thank goodness my life took the path that it did so that I actually started learning some of those new, way healthier skill sets in my 30s. So think back to some of the phrases we tell ourselves, right? I have to do this, or that's just how it is. Those types of thought processes, those beliefs, are reinforcing those ideas that we actually do need to be someone other than ourselves. And we get stuck in a cycle of pretending to then meet someone else's expectations. A big part of this comes from our fear of judgment, our fear of rejection. We start to believe that if others saw the real us, right, that us without the fear, that us without the shame, the like corny, quirky uniqueness of who we are, that we just wouldn't be accepted, right? Or that we wouldn't be enough, like for whatever the reason that comes about, right? We probably very early on in our lives, under 7, probably even under 5, we were being our unique, boisterous selves, loud, playful, fun selves. And we received some message that said, stop that. I'm just going to simplify it, right? There's so many messages you could have gotten at the age of 5 or younger where the sentiment was, that's not okay. Be someone else. And that is where we then start to cultivate this mistrust of ourselves, this lack of acceptance of ourselves, this lack of feeling like we're actually enough. And so we judge ourselves harshly. And we use the fear of other people judging us as a reason to stay in our being unauthentic, right? In being our fake selves. We're afraid that if we show up as ourselves, people just won't accept us. And then again, at some point in life, you start to become aware, conscious, that pretending has been causing so much more distance between you and the people you really want to connect with, the people you really want to be closest to. So, how do we break free from this impostering, this imposter syndrome, right? From this pretending and faking it? The first step is always awareness, because like I said, most people don't even know that they're doing whatever it is that they're doing that's causing them to feel like an imposter or a fake or a fraud. And so you can ask yourself, what am I avoiding feeling by acting in this other way, by pretending? What's the feeling that you're avoiding? And you want to do this in any time where you're having that sensation of like, I feel off, I don't quite feel right, like what's going on here with me? Take a moment and ask yourself, what is the feeling that I'm avoiding experiencing? Because oftentimes pretending, performing is about avoiding some kind of vulnerability, some kind of discomfort, some kind of fear. Again, that fear of judgment, fear of rejection is most common. And also it might show up in some other phrasing. So I want to broaden that for you. There's something that's vulnerable, right? This awareness of, oh, I don't feel like I can. Maybe you have a funny laugh or you have a different laugh than other people and you don't feel like you can let that laugh out. Again, maybe you have this knowledge or this wisdom and you don't feel like you can actually raise your hand and let it out. Whatever it is, right? Or you don't want to let your guard down and expose yourself that you don't really know what the heck you're talking about in this particular room that you're in. Because again, it would mean that you would be feeling some kind of discomfort to admit that you don't actually know as much as you are stating or saying that you know. So once we're aware and we then apply that radical self-compassion, right? Because that's always step 2 is always radical self-compassion. I mean, really like the go-to is always more self-compassion, more self-love. And I really want you to understand what the heck that means so that it doesn't just blow by you and you pass it. So once you are then more aware, more self-compassionate, you can actually assess the fear, right? Is this real? Is this really going to happen? And even if it is really going to happen, can you handle it? Right? Because most of the time, this like fear, this uncomfortable feeling, this uncertainty that we're avoiding isn't actually as big or overwhelming as we feel like it is. And then we get to choose how we want to be, how we want to act, what we want to do in that situation. We can decide to show up authentically even when it feels really vulnerable. And we can also decide to not let ourselves show up as vulnerably, right? Again, we got to evaluate what the circumstances that we're in. If you're in a workplace where it's not safe to actually be your authentic self and you don't feel like you can handle whatever might come from you stepping out and raising your hand, that's okay. Don't do it, right? Remember, becoming more authentic is a process. It will not and does not happen overnight. Every step you take towards being yourself makes you feel a little bit more authentic. It allows you to have your life feel a little bit easier. Okay, which is where I come in to bring the role of coaching, right? Because honestly, becoming authentic was strangely one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it's something I am still working on. And I have been working with the most amazing coach for the last 3+ years. And I still have parts of me where I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure if I want to show that part of me in different moments. And again, if you're anything like me, you're constantly leveling up your life, moving the bar farther and farther out because you want more of the goodness that life has to offer. And so if you're that type of person, which you are, or you wouldn't be listening to the Go All In podcast, then you've got to recognize every time you move that bar out, you need more faith that you can fill that gap, that you can actually excel to that new place you want to go to, that you can actually allow that next level of goodness in to your life. Okay? So part of this process is recognizing whoa, I'm going to, one, need to get really good at being my authentic self. 2, get really good at being vulnerable with ourselves, first and foremost. Getting really vulnerable with yourselves, and then being comfortable being vulnerable with other people. So all of that is a process. And honestly, just the fastest way that I have learned for myself to be this other version of me and get rid of the pretending and the impostering and the feeling like a fraud and feeling super uncomfortable is working with a coach. I just genuinely don't think I would be where I am at in my life had I not paired up with someone like this person I'm currently working with. Because again, I had actually worked with several coaches before that, but they focused in on marketing skills. They focused in on how to build your network. They focused in on how to build your group on Facebook. They focused in on, how to get on video. All of these things, which really can't happen in an authentic way until you learn how to show up more authentically. So it is a process. And just in case you're hearing me say that and you're now thinking, well, does that mean I can't have the success that I want or the love that I want until I fully figure out how the heck to be authentic? No, it doesn't. And that's why I keep reflecting I'm still on this journey, and it's just part of the life experience that we're all a part of, is the unfolding of our authenticity. And you get to have amazing, beautiful goodness right now. The key to receiving the goodness that you might be desiring, whether it's in your business or it's in your relationships or in your desire for experiences and adventure, is knowing how to let it in, right? Which is actually a little bit of a different skill set that I talk a ton about. Go back to episode number 2. And how to create a vision. I mean, all 5 of the first episodes are talking a lot about how to have what you want. And so coaching is the thing, and working with an expert coach under beliefs and creating what you want. That was really the key for me, is not just any coach, but actually a coach that specialized in beliefs and how to create what you want. Okay, they don't have to be a specialist in whatever you want. They don't have to be a specialist in marriage or relationships, nor do they have to be a specialist in business or in your specific business or even in entrepreneurship. They really need to be an expert in belief systems, understanding beliefs and how we create our results through our beliefs, and how to create exactly what you want. Just to be really, really clear, because there are, of course, lots and lots of coaches out there that help us with all kinds of things. And when you don't do the authenticity work first and foremost, everything else is just going to be harder. Like, talk about showing up on video. I mean, here I am showing up on video. Here I've got radical pink hair, radical pink lipstick. It's a little faded now, to be honest. I put it on first thing this morning. And this radical gorgeous blouse, plus my radical background, all the things. This was birthed as a result of doing the authenticity work. The releasing of my self-expression, the becoming myself. Now, granted, when I found this coach, he did advertise himself as a life coach for entrepreneurs, which is now what I advertise myself. It's what feels the most comfortable for me at this moment in time. And when I spoke with him, it was so clear that his specialty was, again, in belief work and how to create exactly what you wanted. He didn't need to be a specialist in what I wanted specifically. No. Okay, because again, we're looking at something so much deeper than any specific result you would be creating. Tangible type of result, right? Outcome. So if you've ever felt stuck or unsure of how to break free, and or you're in that place right now and you're like, oh, there's more out there that I really, really want, or you're either stuck in the spiral, right, of feeling stuck and not sure how to get out of it. You're having that self-doubt, that fear, that insecure feeling, or you're over here and like, my life is actually really good, but I'd love for it to be extraordinary. Okay, this is like the journey that's actually the hardest to make, to go from like good to great or good to extraordinary, right? Because you've finally gotten out of the stuck spiral, shame spiral, sometimes I call it. And now you're in the life is really good. And so now you just want to hold on to that good for as long as you can, because you just got out of how bad it can feel. Okay. And there's so much more goodness available for you, like literally infinite levels of goodness available for you. Whether you want more money, you want more love, you want more adventure in your life, like whatever it is, it's available. And it's, again, so much easier than you think it is. So if you're in the good place, the thing that people who have extraordinary lives, like way, way extraordinary lives, the thing that they do to have those extraordinary lives, and when I say extraordinary, I mean they're both they're feeling fulfilled and they're creating the things that they want in their life, right? So I'm not just talking about they're really, really rich. No, I'm talking about their life is extraordinary. Like you would want their whole life, kind of a vibe. The easiest, most easeful way to get there is by hiring an expert. That's what the really successful people do in life, is they hire experts to help them fill their own awareness and knowledge gaps. Okay? So, whichever camp you're in, this kind of coaching will literally radically change your life for the better. So, when you stop pretending and start living as your true self, this is when your life gets to feel so much lighter, so much more easeful. And I want you to think about this. Where in your life or your business are you still pretending? And what would it look like for you to show up fully as yourself without holding back? If this resonates with you and you're ready to let go of those impostering behaviors, I invite you to consider working with me. Together, we'll release those fears and step into a life that has that deep inner feeling of being you and feeling so good with who you are. All right, you guys, a couple of things coming up. I just finished a mastermind for I've had 2 rounds of the mastermind on client creation and working through money beliefs. And what I learned for myself from running this second mastermind is that I actually want to expand beyond client creation to really looking at all things being successful in entrepreneurship and creating clients, working through your money beliefs, allowing all of the goodness in and becoming that authentic self. And so I'm pivoting from client creation mastermind for coaches to a mastermind for all entrepreneurs. And it's going to be called Liberate Entrepreneur Mastermind. And it's going to last for 6 months instead of 3. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, shoot me a message. Whatever platform you follow me on, shoot me a message and or send me an email, which will be right here in the show notes, to get more information and or set up a call to talk with me more about the Liberated Entrepreneur Mastermind that starts June 4th this year, 2025, depending on when you're listening to me. All right, you guys, as always, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Cheers. Ready to hire your own personal one-to-one mentor to help you take your life and your business to the next level? Go to my website where you can sign up for a no charge, no pressure consultation where we can get to know each other better. I get to hear your vision. I'll help you understand exactly what's getting in your way. And if it feels like a good fit and I believe I can help you, we'll talk about what it looks like to work together.